We have an office pretty close by in Schaumburg. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us if we could ever be of any assistance. We have Justin and Walter from the team in the back, and we have our office flyer, so make sure to grab that on the way out so you have our contact information. But we love to do events like this because it's an issue that people don't think about often enough, especially while they still have time. And we all want to make sure that we do the right thing and plan ahead while we're able to. So please get as much information as you can, ask questions. We're glad that you're all here. And I wanted to thank our co-hosts for the event, the Village of Streamwood, and especially their fire department for hosting us in their beautiful facility today, and Hanover Township as well. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Robin with the clerk's office.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out. My name is Robin Staggers, and I am the Special Assistant to the Clerk for Community Affairs. We're joined this afternoon by Jeannie McGraw. She's our Director of Property Fraud. Madison Bowen, he's one of our community affairs specialists. At the table, there's Brittany, and there is Kalia from our staff. And we take this, what we're doing very seriously, at least I do, because what we're coming to educate you about is something that people generally don't talk about, and it's something that you need to talk about. And the clerk, Cook County Clerk Monica Gordon, has been very supportive in us bringing this forum out into the community. So we travel from the north end of the county to the south end of the county, east and west. So we go all over the county delivering this forum and sharing this information with you. But do understand that we're not saying that what we're presenting to you is something that you have to do. It's a recommendation for you. So if you don't have an estate plan, you should. So I'm going to ask you a question. How many of you have a will? How many online have a will? We are doing this event virtually as well as in person, so bear with us. No answers? Okay. How many have a trust? Good, good. How many have no plan at all? And that's okay. That's why we bring this event out to express to you how important it is for you to have a plan. So COVID took us for a loop, right? People left here unexpectedly, and they did not have a plan for transferring their wealth. And we don't want that to happen as we move forward in life. So we want to make sure that you know all of your options. So how many of you know that it's easier to steal a home than it is a car? Did you know that? How many of you are aware that there is property fraud out there? People are stealing your property on paper. So we have free programs in the Cook County Clerk's office. Property fraud is one. You'll learn about that today. You'll learn about our transfer on death instrument, which is what we promote in this Property After Death Forum. So you'll learn that you have options, and you'll be able to ask our panel of estate planning attorneys and our staff attorneys any questions that you may have with regard to your particular situation. We travel with some community partners that volunteer to go out with us to help educate people about estate planning. And we travel with those attorneys as well as our own attorneys so that they'll have an opportunity to talk to somebody live about their individual situations. So when you came in, you pre-registered, right? Some of you pre-registered, and those online, I haven't forgotten about you, have pre-registered, and then when you came in, if you're physically here, you were given a packet, right? You were given how to check your deed. You were given index cards, right? You were given a bio on the clerk, a property fraud alert form that you can fill out, and it's free for you to use that service, and you were given a transfer on death instrument. So as we go through the presentation, you can refer to the items that we gave you. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do right now is silence your cell phones so that any ringing does not interrupt the flow of our presentation. And if you have questions, we're going to ask it that you write the questions down on the index cards, and our staff will collect them and give the questions to our panel of attorneys for the answers. Okay? We, by law, cannot answer any legal questions, the staff at the clerk's office. That's why we have the estate planning attorneys that join us. If you need to go to the washroom in this lovely facility, you go out the door to your left, and it's down the hall. Any questions before we get started? No? All right. So we're going to start the presentation now.
Please note, there are lawyers present today who work for the Cook County Clerk's office, but although they are lawyers, they are not your lawyers. They can answer any questions related to the office, but they cannot and will not offer you legal advice. However, the volunteer attorneys on this panel today are sharing their time and expertise with you as a public service. They are not paid by the clerk's office to be here, and you are free to consult them or any qualified attorney to address your legal concerns. There are free legal service organizations we partner with who are present here today. They can offer you legal advice for free. We would also encourage you to see if you qualify for their services. Thank you, and enjoy the presentation.
Hello and welcome. I'm Monica Gordon, your Cook County Clerk. Thank you for joining us today for this important presentation on property fraud and managing your property after death. One of the main responsibilities of the Cook County Clerk's Office is to record and maintain property deeds and other property transaction records that take place in Cook County. In that role, one of the most important duties we have is to protect Cook County homeowners from property fraud. Unfortunately, there are fraudsters out there who attempt to file forged documents to illegally transfer the property of unsuspecting homeowners. Today, we will inform you about this issue and show you how you can register with our office for a free property fraud alert service to help protect your home and property. Another topic we will cover is making plans to manage your property after your death or the death of a loved one. We understand it can be difficult to talk about end-of-life planning, but it's essential to protect your assets to ensure the well-being of your family. At the Cook County Clerk's Office, we are here to serve. We hope the information shared in today's presentation will empower you with the knowledge you need to address these important issues that affect our daily lives. Thank you again for being here, and please enjoy the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we begin our discussion, we want to let you know that we will have volunteer attorneys available at the end of the presentation who can answer your questions about the topics we will be covering. Now, let's begin our discussion by talking about making plans to manage your property and assets in the event of your death. As Clerk Gordon noted, no one wants to talk about death or end-of-life planning, but it is critical to manage your assets to protect your family and loved ones. Having a sound end-of-life plan is one of the greatest gifts that you can provide to your children and family members. Consider this. What do you think these three legendary individuals have in common? Prince, Aretha Franklin, and Abraham Lincoln.
87 years ago.
They have something very unfortunate in common. They failed to make plans for their assets upon their death. No will, no trust, no plan. Now let's consider someone who thought he had it right. Music legend James Brown, the godfather of soul. When he passed away in 2006, Brown's estate was worth an estimated $90 million. When he died, Brown left behind a plan for most of his estate to pay for scholarships for children in need in South Carolina, the state where he was born. But that will was challenged by family members after his death, resulting in more than 12 lawsuits. It took more than a decade of litigation before Mr. Brown's assets were designated as he had intended. So, how do you get it right when it comes to your property after death? The best advice is to consult with an attorney or estate planning professional to provide you with advice for your specific circumstances. But you should also know that under Illinois law, you can transfer your home, your car, or your bank account to a loved one without a will or trust and without having to pay fees or court costs. Here are the details on how to transfer your property. First, the transfer on death instrument. The clerk's office offers a free document on our website known as a transfer on death instrument, but we call it a TODI. Beyond the clerk's office, you can also obtain this document at no cost from an attorney or a legal aid organization. The form should be completed and notarized and then recorded at the clerk's office in our recording operations division. The transfer on death instrument will then be recorded on your property's chain of title, and upon your death, the person designated to receive your property can do so after completing the required forms. While in the process of completing your TODI, be sure to contact the individual you plan to give the property to. Advise them they have up to 2 years to come to our office, complete the required forms to accept, and pay the recording fee. Please note that the clerk's office cannot assist you in the preparation of the transfer on death instrument or any legal document, and we do not provide legal advice to customers. Next, let's discuss a payable on death instrument. You can transfer the funds from your bank account in a similar way. Utilizing a tool known as a payable on death instrument, a person can transfer assets in a bank account to the beneficiary of their choosing after death. A payable on death instrument can be obtained and used at most financial institutions for checkings and savings accounts, certificates of deposits, money markets, and savings bonds. Even if you have completed a payable on death instrument, the account holder has full control of their funds in the account until their time of death. When the account holder passes, the beneficiary can claim specified assets directly from the financial institution without having to wait for probate court proceedings. Finally, let's discuss a beneficiary affidavit. There is also a mechanism to transfer your car to a designated beneficiary. A vehicle owner may change, add, or remove a beneficiary on the title of their car by completing a free beneficiary affidavit through the Illinois Secretary of State's office. Keep in mind that if money is still owed on your home or vehicle at the time of your death, your beneficiary will still be responsible for the mortgage and payments moving forward. To obtain this beneficiary affidavit, go to the Illinois Secretary of State website at www.ilsos.gov. Now, let's move on to the second part of our program, property fraud, which can also be known as deed fraud. So what exactly is property fraud? Property fraud is the fraudulent and illegal recording of a document against your home's property records. We call it paper terrorism, and it is a very real problem and potential risk for all property owners. How can this happen? Almost every state has an open and public recording system, meaning that you cannot freeze your chain of title like you can your credit report. Plus, county recorders are not authorized by law to validate legal claims made in documents. Property fraud can involve the recording or filing of false or forged transfers of ownership, quitclaim deeds, or the filing of a bogus lien to steal property or harass an unsuspecting property owner. Even if your home is paid off, that does not stop someone from filing a new deed on top of it without the property owner's knowledge. Let's look at this investigative report that takes a close look at how property fraud can occur.
Now to scam you, and Rebecca, you have a story about a scheme that literally hits close to home for a lot of people.
Yeah, Whit, this is a warning about criminals stealing your most prized possession, your home, and you're about to see surveillance footage that authorities say shows the scam in action. This may look like a normal day at a county clerk's office, but look closely at this couple in the waiting room. Prosecutors say Michelle Cherry and her husband Victor Rodriguez were there to steal a home from unsuspecting owners.
To have someone steal your property it's like stealing the American dream. It's terrible. We've seen a big increase in that sort of activity.
According to Florida prosecutor Mike Lennon, Cherry made 3 trips to the clerk's office, stealing not 1, but 3 different Tampa area properties with fraudulent documents, using quitclaim deeds, a type of deed that can quickly transfer ownership of property.
They looked for properties that they believed were abandoned, and then they used online information to forge signatures on these deeds to file them with the clerk of court.
Prosecutors say one of those properties belonged to Larry and Dreama Bilby.
Just like that, your house is stolen. Yeah. It's gone.
It only cost 70 cents and some paperwork.
The Bilbys tell us they weren't living in their home at the time because of construction, but they were monitoring their home security cameras, which they say showed the suspects on their property multiple times.
They took our power bill and our water bill. They shut off our name and put their names on it.
The Bilbys credit their county clerk's office with alerting them of the change in the home's title.
Anytime anything is filed against your property, you get an alert, whether it's a phone call, a text, or an email. It is a free service.
Even while Tampa police were investigating, the suspect seen here in this body cam video adamant the Bilby's home belongs to her.
I own it. I'm on the current deed.
They were stealing these properties with the intent to try to get loans out on the properties or to try to sell them to unsuspecting buyers.
Both suspects arrested.
You have a warrant?
Yeah. And charged with conspiracy to commit fraud. Some officials are now calling for state laws to be changed, making it tougher to sell properties using quitclaim deed forms.
The fact that the form is so simple and requires so little documentation is problematic.
If you don't sign up for property fraud alert, you're just asking for the possibility that the same thing that happened to us.
To combat this problem, the clerk's office has a property fraud unit with investigators and caseworkers who respond to and investigate any complaints of property fraud. Our office also offers a free property fraud alert that will provide a telephone call or email to the property owner anytime a document is recorded against their property or the property of a loved one. There are 3 easy ways to sign up for the clerk's free property fraud alert. You may sign up in person at the clerk's office, sign up online, or sign up with a telephone call. Once registered, if you receive an alert or have reason to be concerned about property fraud, you can contact the clerk's property fraud unit and our staff can help research the problem and coordinate a response. Call 312-603-4000 or visit our website at www.cookcountyclerk.com/property-fraud. On a related note, while we're on the topic of your chain of title and fraud, property owners often need to obtain an official copy of their property deed when purchasing a home. Or for tax purposes, you should be aware there is a predatory practice aimed at homeowners in which companies offer a copy of your property's deed at a large markup price, sometimes exceeding $200. The clerk's office wants to remind you that we offer the same service at a more affordable price. So there's no reason to pay exorbitant prices to gain access to these essential documents. Check our website at www.cookcountyclerk.com/recording fees to get a full list of prices. On behalf of Clerk Monica Gordon, we hope that you have found this presentation useful. The clerk's office is your first line of defense against property fraud. So we hope that you will take this opportunity to sign up for our free property fraud alert if you have not already done so. Managing your property and your assets in the event of your death is also critical to protect your family and your assets, and to ensure that your wishes are carried out after your death. A copy of this presentation is available on the clerk's website if you would like to review it again or share with a friend or family member. Go to www.cookcountyclerk.com/PAD resources to view the presentation. For more information on how to host a property after death property fraud forum in your community, contact our special assistant to the clerk for community affairs, Robin Staggers, at 312-603-3974, or email robin.staggers@cookcountyil.gov. Now, let's ask the volunteer attorneys who are joining us to introduce themselves, and we will open up our presentation for your questions.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Devin Mapes. I'm an attorney with the County Clerk's Office. I do a number of things in this role, but I focus on vital records in the real estate and tax services divisions. For this job, I was a prosecutor for a bit with the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, and then before that, I was a clerk for a judge in Cook County.
Hi, my name is Kang Trin. I'm the legal counsel for recording operations, what you all might have remembered used to be the recorder of deeds. And I'm also the fraud unit supervisor along with Jeannie McGraw. And I've worked at the assessor's office, back then the recorder of deeds, and as a judicial law clerk and as assistant attorney general at a time. And I'm glad to be here with you.
So online, the person that's joining us virtually is an attorney with the Center for Volunteer Legal Services, and her name is Attorney Jamie Slaffer. Jamie Slaffer is a supervising attorney at Chicago Volunteer Legal Services of the Adult Guardian Ad Litem and Decedents Estates Program. She graduated from Loyola University, Chicago, with honors and was admitted to the bar in 2012. As a stay-at-home mom, she volunteered with CVLS in the summer of 2013 with the Mortgage Foreclosure Mediation Program and simple family law cases. In 2014, Jamie volunteered in the Minor Guardian Ad Litem Program and drafted accountings for CVLS guardianship clients. She then joined Garcia and De Costanza, PC 2019, focusing on estate guardianships and decedent estates. Before joining CVLS, Jamie worked for Metropolitan Family Services, Legal Aid Society, in the Safety and Family Practice Group as a staff attorney focused on elder victims of abuse. Now, at this time, if you have questions, we're going to ask those that are online to put their questions in the chat, and the attorneys will read the questions. Jamie Slaffer will answer the online questions, and our attorneys here will answer the questions for your purposes, okay? So write your questions on your cards, and our staff will collect them. Now, let me ask you this. How many of you learned something today from this video? You learned something you didn't know, right? So you don't know what you don't know until the information is presented to you. And we are encouraged by all of the responses we get when we go out in the community, because we do about 2 or 3 of these things a week. And we get so many questions, and our attorneys are received graciously by our audience because they feel like they've been helped. So with that said, Do all of you know what the Cook County Clerk's office does? Do you know about all the services that we provide? Did you know that our new clerk was Monica Gordon? Okay, yes. Okay, good. We have quite a few services that we provide. We do recordings, so we record all of your property records, whether they're, if you have, what do I want to say, your releases on your property, any liens that are on your property, we record those on your properties. We also have our tax services department, so if you lose your property for the taxes, you can come to our department, our tax services department, to redeem your property. We have our property fraud unit, which you learned about in the presentation. They help you protect your property. Well, the property fraud alert helps protect your property, just like you protect your credit, you should protect your property. So that's a free service that we offer. We also have our legal services department. We have elections, which is our largest division. So our elections department handles all of the suburban elections through Cook County. So anytime you have an election out here, we're handling it. Elections, property fraud, vital records. So in our office in the vital records unit, you can come down there and get a copy of your birth certificate, death certificate, marriage license, and all of that. Okay, question online.
What I'll do is I'll read also, we'll read the questions that we have in the audience, and then we'll read also the questions that are typed in online so that everybody can hear the answers and the questions. So we'll start with the online question if we can. The question is, how can we get the deed for the paid house? So typically when we hear this type of question, it usually means that the person paid off their mortgage and now they're looking for their title, which is very similar to when you buy a car, right? So you buy a car and your familiarity with that is when you pay off that car note, the bank, whoever's holding your title, sends it to you. That's our typical experience with high value items. All right? Our house is high value and then our car is high value. And so that is the background that we usually use when we think about, okay, I paid off my house, so where's my title? In contemporary type of financing, when you buy a house, at closing, you'll get your deed. You sign your mortgage, you'll get your deed. That's your quote-unquote title. So we don't issue you a new title, like the Secretary of State would, for example, when you pay off your mortgage. That's not how that technically works. So if you've paid off your mortgage, again, in contemporary type of financing, that bank will record a release against your property, releasing that mortgage. And it'll be very specific. That release will show that they're releasing this mortgage executed on this date, and that mortgage document number that was recorded. They'll list that. They're required to by law. They'll list that document number, and then you can trace it back to when you actually had your mortgage. And if you had a 30-year mortgage, you look back 30 years ago, and you'll see that, yep, that's that document number that was released. And hopefully that helps explain that question.
Got another one from the internet.
Go ahead.
Question was, can documents be recorded at more of a remote location like Rolling Meadows or some of the suburban courthouses? The answer is no. The only services the clerk's office offers at those locations are not at Rolling Meadows, but at Skokie and Maywood and Markham are vital records, so birth, death, and marriage records. For recording documents, you have to come downtown, 118 North Clark Street, Chicago, Suite 120,
Yes.
I believe. Or I think you can mail them in as well.
Okay. Question from our live audience. Can you explain what a quit is? Q-U-I-T, not quick as in fast. quit claim deed is?
There are different types of deeds out there, and a quitclaim deed essentially says that you're going to give whatever you have to the person that you name. So I can quitclaim you to Golden Gate Bridge. I don't have any rights or interest in it. I only have what I have, which may be nothing. So typically people use a quitclaim deed to, and it's a quick way to add someone to the chain of title to the ownership of a house. So for example, if you have a family member, a son or a daughter, that you, for example, want to add to the ownership of the house, then typically what you'll see is the parents quitclaiming the property, any type of tenancy to themselves, and then their son or daughter or whoever that they're adding to ownership. But again, with a quitclaim deed, remember that when you're executing a quitclaim deed, it's not like you can ever take it back. You're actually adding someone to the ownership. And once they're an owner with whatever rights that you put on that quitclaim deed. So, you got to keep that in mind. Now, in terms of why people sometimes use quitclaim deeds, they want to deal with a situation in their minds, like an estate planning type of situation. You know what? If I pass away, I want to make sure that my son or my daughter is already on ownership. But always remember that when you add them as onto your title, onto your property, they are an owner of that property, and all the liabilities that they may have comes right along with that. So always keep that in mind, and it's good to make sure that if you're in a situation where you're thinking about a quitclaim deed as part of some kind of plan, that you talk to a professional, because you need to lay out all the facts that are involved in your particular situation to make sure that is this the right tool to use. And I'll just give you an example of the right tool to use. And this is a very recent example. So I had a wife. The husband has passed away. The husband back in the 1990s thought that it was a good idea to add his wife to the ownership of the property. They added it not as joint tenancy with right of survivorship. That means adding somebody. And that type of tenancy means that when one person dies, the other person gets 100%. Instead, the husband did it himself, and they put in no tenancy language. So guess what? The tenancy is tenants in common. That means wife had 50%, husband had 50%. They come running to us at our fraud unit trying to figure out how they can be helped. But the fraud unit can't help you in that type of situation. That's the type of situation 30 years ago, the husband should have probably talked to a lawyer and make sure that the paperwork that they intended was the right outcome for them in their situation. And now 30 years later, the wife is left in a lurch, and most likely not in that situation, she's going to have to take the case to probate.
Let's take a question from the online. Yes.
The question is, can we get the release of document from the county? So I'm going to read that question as, can you get a mortgage release from the Cook County Clerk's office? Yes, you can. You can go on our website at Cook County Clerk, il.gov. We have a .com that we just talked to you about, but some folks are more comfortable going to a .gov website because, it's an official government website. So again, Cook County Clerk, il.gov. Go to our recording department, search recordings, then enter our search site, type in your property's index number. It's your PIN number. You can find your PIN number in your real estate property tax bill or your assessment notice. Type that in, and then you'll bring up the entire chain of title, and you can view all the documents for free. Remember, when you go to our website, you search for free and view all documents for free. So you don't have to buy a thing. If you want to buy, you can click on the little box, and you can either buy a non-certified document for $5 plus a little credit card charge, or if you really need a certified copy, you can buy that online as well. It's a bit more expensive at $65.
Is it easy to scam a property if it's in a land trust or trust? Please explain to me what the different types of trusts are, and if it's in a trust, why is it safer?
I think we got to answer that question, and we have to split that question. So let me try to split the question. The question first is about the types of trusts, so we'll keep that separate, and then the question about fraud. Fraud can, so anyone can record a fraudulent deed against any property in Cook County, regardless of how it's held. So if you have the property in a trust, that means the trust owns the property, or whether you quitclaim deeded it to your, yourself and your husband and your kids, the fraud affects the property the same way, because it doesn't matter that you left it in a trust where no one can know the identity of you, right? You put your property in a trust to avoid, for privacy purposes, right? To avoid liability, for example. That doesn't prevent me from finding you at your house, figuring out what your name is, which is pretty easy, because I can go online. Again, remember that search sites I gave you? I can look up your property, where you live, look up the documents that are recorded against that property. I can see your name there, and you probably signed a mortgage at some point in time. I can copy and paste your signature onto a quitclaim deed, and then get that recorded. So it doesn't matter how you hold your property. The reason we're here is you got to sign up for that property fraud alert. It's free to do, and that's probably the most important thing that you can do for yourself, because if any document is recorded and indexed against your property, you're going to get an alert. And then you can look up that document for free online. So make sure you do that. So I think the second part?
There's a couple more questions online. And actually, these
We didn't
two.
finish about the trust.
Oh.
Different types of trust.
So there are many different types of trust. I think the questions was, so trust is a very large area of law, and there's trust that you can create. Definitely, that if you have a question about what's best for you, go talk to a lawyer, because again, trusts are it's a huge body of law. There are many variations of what you can do with a trust, how much control you want to exert over your beneficiaries. But a land trust is basically like Chicago Title and Trust. You've got to pay a company. They are the owners of your property. You're a beneficiary of the property, and you have to pay basically an annual upkeep fee to hold your property in a land trust. With, like, again, the biggest one here in Chicago, Chicago Title and Trust. So it provides a certain level of protection. Some people feel that they want to have their property in a trust because they feel that if they get into a situation where creditors are coming after them, they feel that they need to protect their property. So that's a reason why they will hold their property in a trust. But it doesn't protect you from fraud.
Online question.
Say again.
Online question.
Yes, sorry. Online questions. These two questions are essentially the same question, and that is, what happens to your assets and bank accounts upon your death if you do not have a trust or a will? And then the second one is the same question, and you are single. Well, regardless the situation, your assets, if you don't have a trust or a will, and I'm going to read this as not having a plan, generally. If you don't have a plan, then your assets will go, through probate. That would be the normal course of events. And what does that mean? That basically means you have to go before a judge, the survivors or beneficiary or potential beneficiaries go before a judge. The judge would have to review everything. That will take a lot of time. There will be attorneys involved. They may or may not be expensive. That depends on who you hire, I suppose. But that's generally what will happen. And also, I would add, the state of Illinois has a default set of rules for what to do with your stuff if you don't come up with a plan. And the state of Illinois will try their best to determine what you want to happen, but they're probably not going to know what you want to happen as best as you do. So we're going back to have a plan. So
what's the benefit in having a trust versus a transfer on death instrument?
Well, a transfer on death instrument relates to just property. So property. And by that, there's a form, it's very quick, relatively speaking, if you compare it to other forms of transferring assets to beneficiaries. It also does not go through probate. It just does need to be claimed by the beneficiary after your passing. And they do that by coming into the office, filling out an affidavit form. There's a fee associated with that. It's $107. I can never remember that number, but I think it's $107. And that's pretty much the extent of it.
So what's the fee for recording a transfer on death instrument?
Recording a transfer on death instrument, you should have received in your packet, I believe, a transfer on death form. That's a form created by the clerk's office. You will go through that form. We would encourage you to consult an attorney while doing that. It's always a good idea to talk to an estate planning attorney when you're preparing for the next phase. It will need to be notarized, but then once you fill it all out, you have to come to the clerk's office to record it, or you can mail it in. The fee is $59 to record that document. It is important that you do record it. If you do not record it and it's just sitting on your kitchen table and you happen to pass, it's not actually a recorded document. And similarly, if you are on the way to the clerk's office and something happens to happen to you, God forbid, and you fully intended to record it in the next 10 minutes, it still is not a recorded document. So that's an important little note.
So if I mail the documents and I passed and the document hasn't gotten to the recorder's office?
Still not recorded. Even though you fully intended to be recorded by putting it in the mail, just by putting it in the mail is not a recording act. It has to get to our office first, and then it has to go through a process whereby we record it. Now, that could take a varying amount of time, depending on various factors. So if you want the certainty, the surety of it being recorded when you go to the clerk's office and just knowing it's a done thing, then you'll come into the clerk's office. Otherwise, I would say, if you mail it in, the best way to check would be just to check the website and see if it's a recorded document, but King may have another thought.
Yep, it's on. Sorry about that. I pressed the mute button, my fault. We have a bi-weekly help desk that's offered by the Center for Disability and Elder Law, and they can help you prepare a TOTI for free. So remember that there are free services, and I believe CVLS might have that as well. So if you're interested in that, come see me and we get you signed up. With any of these organizations. There are legal assistance organizations out there that will help for free. We've got a question on the chat here. What is the form that transfers the vehicle to the beneficiary? What is the form that transfers a vehicle to the beneficiary? And what's the website? That form is called the Beneficiary Affidavit Form, and it's on the Illinois Secretary of State's website. So it's ilsos.gov. They do have a form section. You're going to have to go there and search for that form, but that's on the Illinois Secretary of State's website.
And just to close the loop on these sorts of affidavit forms, so you've heard there's a TOTI, a transfer on death instrument, that's for property. This one that Kang just spoke about is for cars, and then there's one for your bank account. You'll find that at your respective banks. They should have that item for you. Same process generally, same idea, concept. Doesn't go through probate, should make that easier, so on and so forth. And one more point.
Okay.
If you want to change the information on your form after you've recorded it, the only way to do that is to fill out and record a second one. So it'll still be another $59 to do that, but that's how you do it. And same comment, if you are on the way to the clerk's office and it doesn't get recorded and something happens to you, that first one that's on file, that's going to be the one that controls.
So with my bank account, if I add a beneficiary or a person to my bank account, do they still have the same rights as if I added them as a beneficiary after I die?
So the question turns around, you have a bank account and you want to make sure that that money goes to somebody that you want it to go to. If you add that person today as a co-owner of your bank account, whose money is that? Whose money is it? That's right, both. And their creditors, their spending habits, it's their money. If you put them in as and they call it payable on death. Now, it depends on the bank. The bank has their own form. So each bank you have to figure out, you got to go there and then you got to figure out what form they have and what procedure, again, what we just talked about. If you put them on as a beneficiary, then they don't have access to that money until you're gone. And then they have a process afterwards that surviving beneficiary then has to go through whatever process that bank has in place to get access to those funds at that time after your death.
Online question?
This question here is, what about businesses? Is there any form to record? That's a fundamentally difficult question. And I think whoever asked this question, you got to talk to an attorney about that, because you're involving a corporation, and there are many, 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 many issues involving corporations, who hold stock, how much. So definitely, if you have a question about how to pass your business to your beneficiaries, you definitely need to go talk to a lawyer.
Another question from online.
The question here, is that a question? I think the comment is attorneys and title companies should give out fraud alert forms and transfer on death forms at closing. What a great idea, in all honesty. You all should know about these free services that you get. Chief amongst them is that if you just bought a piece of property, and just a reminder, because it was covered in the video, if you transact business, there are companies out there that know that you bought or sold a property or added somebody to the chain of title, and they will mail you a document that looks just like from the IRS. It looks like a bill, actually. But there's this fine print that says we're not from the government. And they'll charge you hundreds of dollars. And I've seen such a thing before on many occasions. And people call us and it's like, hey, did you send me this? You want to charge me $300 for a copy of a deed? We charge $5. So just keep that in mind. That's not us. We don't do that. We don't reach out to you actively after you buy a house to tell you, hey, you can buy a copy of a deed. That's not us.
But you can view it for free. That's great.
So some ads on television advertise about protecting your property from fraud. If I already registered with the Cook County for fraud alert, what is the difference between those services to prevent fraud on property and ours?
I actually have no idea what that's what they're talking about, but can go for it.
Well, I can't talk about what these companies guarantee or purport to guarantee to you. What I can tell you are all the phone calls that we have to field because somebody purchased a service, whatever that service is. That service tells them, oh my gosh, somebody bought a house in your name. And then that person is directed to contact us. And it is probably one of the most frustrating conversations to have. Unfortunate, we feel for the customer, we feel for the complainant. but we don't know what triggered that alert. And the frustrating part is that that company, whatever these services they provide, they tell us, well, we don't know. You gotta talk to the Cook County Clerk's office. Give them a call. Having said that, when you sign up with the property fraud alert, what that does is it doesn't prevent fraud up front. What it does is it gives you a tool, a really fast tool, because when a document is recorded and then indexed, it's about a 2-week time frame. So within a month, you'll get an alert. If you sign up by email, you get an alert by email, and that email that you receive will have a link to the document that triggered the alert. So you can click on it and you can figure out right away what's going on. And if that document is not supposed to be on your chain of title, you can do two things. You can contact us right away, which I recommend, and if it is fraudulent, we'll take a case and we'll prosecute that case. The other thing you can do is, if you're not comfortable with going with us, then you'd have to file your own lawsuit. And that can take a lot of time and effort and expense. But having said that, if you get an alert, most likely and not, it's something that you triggered. You refinance, you got another mortgage, that will trigger an alert to you. And that's the vast numbers of alert that we send out. It's always about what you've done. In a very rare circumstance, a document ends up on your chain of title that's not supposed to be there because somebody had a bad day and they put 6 instead of a 5. That does occur. It's called misindexing. But give us a call. If you don't recognize that document, give us a call. We're more than happy to walk through your chain of title to figure out whether that's actually a fraudulent document or not.
And I would add that, so we're talking about property fraud for properties in Cook County, and I know we're sort of close to other counties, right? So sometimes people have properties in other counties, like DuPage is right next door, whether maybe Wisconsin or Michigan. What we do in our county is maybe different than what other counties do, right? So they may have property fraud structures in those other counties, but you'd have to file something in those counties if it does exist in those counties. So just keep that in mind. This is a Cook County thing, what we're talking about, but it's highly likely if that you have a property in another county in Illinois, they may have one, but I just don't know off the top of my head.
So this question relates to what you just said. Kane, if something happens on my chain of title or on my deed that I did not authorize, what do? You still contact the Cook County Clerk's office. We have a staff of fraud investigators that can look at your chain of title to help you navigate and see what's going on. So when Kang says contact us, he doesn't mean contact him. We have a staff that will assist you. Yes, we have a staff that will assist you. And Jeannie McGraw is our Director of Property Fraud, and she's at our table in the back. So if you have additional property fraud questions, you can pose them to Jeannie or you can pose them to Kang. Online question.
It's related to what we had talked about just earlier, but the question is, statement actually, not a question. I did not receive any title from the bank, just a final statement. I'm going to read that again as you're wondering about where your deed is once you paid off your mortgage, and so whoever typed this, go on our website at cookcountyclerkil.gov, go to our recordings department website, and then click on search recordings, type in your property index number, and you should see a release of mortgage on your chain of title that's been recorded. Now there is a little delay. If you just paid off your mortgage and your bank just sent you a letter that says, hey, congratulations, we recorded the document today, and I'm saying today. It takes about 2 to 3 weeks for a recorded document to show up against your property. That's called indexing. So remember I said there's recording and indexing? The act of recording is when you come in, we review your document and we price it, and we accept it and we put a stamp on there, that's the act of recording. So we intake that document. Then that document is reviewed by a person. They look for your property index number, the legal description, the names on that document. Then they'll data entry that information into a index, right? That's what we call indexing. And then that means that document then it shows up against your chance title. That takes about 2 or 3 weeks.
So we talk about contacting an attorney. Now, if you don't have an attorney, we partner with some free legal services. The Center for Volunteer Legal Services, which Jamie Slaffer, who is on our virtual feed, represents. We partner with the Legal Aid Chicago, and we partner with the Center for Disability and Elder Law. So if you need a referral to any of those types of organizations, we have them, so you can see us at the end of the presentation, okay? We also have paid attorneys that come out and volunteer their services with us and attend these forums with us. So we have those attorneys as well. So if you need a referral, we can give you a referral and give you the attorney's names and numbers. Question from the...
There are no questions. I guess.
Okay, I got one last question from the audience. If you have beneficiaries on savings or CDs, do you need a payable on death instrument? What's Jamie say?
I would recommend that you talk to your relevant estate planning attorney. Without knowing any more details or context, which would be highly relevant to this question, that would be my recommendation for you.
Okay. What's the difference or what's the benefit of having a toady versus a will versus a trust?
So those 3 items are tools in a toolbox. You think about you use a hammer to nail down a nail. You don't use a wrench to do it. So these are all tools in a toolbox. A will, if you talk to an estate planning professional, an estate planning lawyer, they'll have all these tools for you. At times they'll have a will and a trust, and they consider a will for all the parts that are left over that aren't addressed in a trust. They'll also use potentially a transfer on death instrument, but each of these have benefits and their side effects that you might not like. So, for example, a will has to go to court. You got to go to court. You got to hire a lawyer, and it does cost a bunch of money. A trust costs a bunch of money up front, but it may prevent a situation where your assets go into probate. Transfer and death instrument is probably the most simple and easiest document that you can get that transfers a substantial amount of your assets to your beneficiaries for a very small amount of money. Having said that, even though it costs only $59 to record, if you're not familiar with filling out this type of legal document, and I'm talking about knowing how to prepare it, making sure that all your information is properly filled out, come and see us. We'll get you signed up with the free legal services providers. And here's why I say that. During this time frame, back in 2020, I saw transfer and death instruments with severe errors on them. And does anybody here know what a legal description is of their property? Do you know where you can get it? Do you know if it's accurate? It might be on your Plata survey as well, that's right. So I saw a transfer and death instrument that in the legal description section, the person put in the number of bedrooms, the number of baths. That's not a legal description. Now imagine now that person passes away and their beneficiaries, right, thinking, hey, Now they've got a problem. So if you're in that type of situation, you're not familiar with these type of filling out these legal documents, come on and see us. We'll get you referred over to volunteers who can help you make sure that you prepare a good document. We have an online question. How can we make sure that joint tenancy with right of survivorship is documented if the property was initially bought with a spouse? So this person sounds like that they're worried about does their deed list them? When I say them, I'm saying that the spouse and them as joint tenants with right of survivorship. You gotta check that deed, and it'll say what language that tenancy is in. If a deed doesn't say anything about joint tenancy with right of survivorship, the default or tenants in the entirety, if it doesn't say that, default here in Illinois is tenants in common. That means you own a percentage, and that can cause potentially problems later down the line. So whoever this is, go on, check your deed that added the spouse. And then see what that tenancy is. And if you've got questions about that, please contact a lawyer.
Is that it? Okay, so on my transfer on death instrument, if I have multiple beneficiaries, I only have one house. So how should I indicate how the property is distributed to multiple beneficiaries?
Well, if you take a look at the form in your packet, you may notice that there are a number of slots for different beneficiaries. You can name as many or as few as you want. I would note that, let's say you do have your property, your house, and you've got 3 kids, and I'm sure they all get along famously from birth to now, and I'm sure that will continue. But if you don't have confidence in that view, maybe take that into consideration. But all of that said, it's best that when you're trying to put together a TOTI, like any after-death plan, you should talk to an attorney, a licensed attorney, to help you work through the best structure for your situation. That may be a TOTI, it may not, but most people aren't really aware of the benefits of a TOTI, and that's sort of why we're here. It's cheap, it doesn't go through probate, and it goes to the front of the line in terms of your assets, at least for your real estate. So.
And if you're about to add like 6 or 10 or 20 beneficiaries to your transfer and death instrument, just take note that when they come screaming down to the fraud unit, because they're now having a fight, we can't handle that. So if you're in that type of situation where you think you're going to use a TOTI for, adding a bunch of people, tools in the toolbox are usually the appropriate tool for your situation. And if you're in that type of spot, definitely talk to a lawyer. Because your facts and circumstance may warrant something else, altogether. So always keep that in mind, that, it's a tool in a toolbox and you use the appropriate tool for yourself.
And remember, too, that if your life situation changes, you married and you divorced that first husband, and you have him down as a beneficiary on your TOTI, and you marry someone else, that first husband is the one that has rights to your property.
As long as that document is still recorded and nothing else has been recorded after, then yeah.
So as life situations change, make sure you change your beneficiaries. That means on your car, your bank account, and on your property, okay? And if you have more than one property, you need to fill out more than one form. All right? Same way with the property fraud alert. If you have more than one property, you need to fill out more than one property fraud alert. So, you got the forms. We're not saying that you have to complete them, But if you have a property fraud alert, we want you to file that with us. We get you registered for property fraud, and you'll get an alert once we get you into our system, and it's free.
And you can fill out a property fraud alert for your mom's house, your brother's house, your kid's house, so on and so forth, provided, again, this is all Cook County. This form is for Cook County. But you just make sure on the form you mark that you're not the owner. So
tell me,
There you go.
what was the importance of us bringing this information to you? We want you to have a what? A plan. We're not saying you have to sign up for any of our services, but we want to impress upon you that you should have a plan. And if you have a plan, somebody should know about it. So it's no good to your beneficiaries if they don't know it exists, right? If they don't know where your will is, if they don't know you filed a TOTI and they're the beneficiaries, or even if you have a trust and they don't know that the trust exists, you have to have a plan and you have to tell your beneficiaries about it, okay? So I want to thank our attorneys, our volunteer attorneys, and I want to thank Jamie Slaffer on our online feed for lending their services to us free of charge, okay? So thank you. I hope you learned something today, because that's the purpose of us coming out, that we educate you so that you know what you need to do moving forward, because life is so uncertain.
One last point about life and being uncertain. Some of the most uncomfortable and very sad conversations that I've had are surviving family members who are asking about a cemetery deed. And so a lot of folks purchase the cemetery plot ahead of time. Cemetery deeds are not recorded at the Cook County Clerk's office. We don't have access to those records. And so those cemetery deeds are held by the cemetery in particular, whichever one that you purchased it from. So make sure that if you have that type of situation, that your loved ones know where that information is. Because again, the worst conversations that I've had, and very sad conversations, are survivors knowing that they had a conversation with their parents, knowing that they told them that there was that they had purchased cemetery plots, and now they're in the lurch trying to figure out, where is it? So if you have a plan, make sure you have a plan. And if you do have a plan, share that plan with your beneficiaries.
So if you know of anybody that would like to put on one of these forums in your community, your church, if you have some people that want to partner with an organization, you can contact me. My name is Robin Staggers. The number is 312-603-3974. We come out free of charge. We bring a panel of estate planning professionals with us and materials. And all we ask, if we set up these events, is that you have at least 50 people pre-registered for us to bring this to your community. So you can contact me if you're interested in doing that. And I want to thank our hosts. I want to thank Commissioner Kevin Morrison and his staff for having us out. I want to thank the chief of this lovely firehouse for having us in here, because this is really a beautiful facility. Thank you, Hanover Township. We look forward to partnering with you in the future. And we thank all of you for coming out. And we just hope you learn something that you can take back, use, or share with your family members. So thank you for coming out. Commissioner Morris's staff, you want to have final words or no? So we're going to close for now. You can see our staff in the back. If you want to complete your property fraud alert, please make sure that you sign the form, date it, and show us your ID. We have to see a picture ID, because we want to make sure that you're not the fraudster. So thank you for coming. Thank you to our panel of attorneys, and hope to see you again soon.